Back with another video on 3D printing. Today we're talking about making things with what's called VarioSure TPU, or some brands call it TPU Air. It is an expanding TPU, which is a flexible filament, and when it expands it ends up being like a PVC foam, which works really well for some particular aspects of our hobby. Most notably, wheels. So we tend to buy these wheels. This is a 6-inch Dubro. They come in like the scale size or a 6-inch balloon wheel. But that's pretty much the size you can buy commercially unless you start buying custom European wheels, which are upwards of $500 for a pair. I've been down this road of trying to make my own. I thought, hey, why don't we use inner tubes for like wheelbarrow wheels or scooter wheels, and then print some hubs for them. The problem with that is keeping them on the rim, and then the fact that the printed hub ends up being quite big, and their form factor is a big hub with a quite narrow wheel size, which I did have on this plane for a while, and it worked pretty well, but they're a little bit subject to irregularities when you inflate them because they are designed to be constrained inside a tyre. So I got this VarioSure TPU, and I thought I would CAD up my own wheel and print it in two halves. So these are printed with 2 layers on the perimeter, a gyroid infill. This one's I think 7%, in 2 halves. And you can see that's what the infill looks like, so it maintains that sponginess. And I made these, which are now sitting on my lumberjack, 50cc lumberjack. They're a bit smaller than what I had on there before, so I'm going to make some larger ones. And then I decided, well, I can improve on that. Let's thin them out a little bit. They don't need to be quite so wide. Then added some words to them too, because I needed to do a bit of play on words of Alaskan bush wheels. And we've now even progressed to making massive ones. So because I've got a printer which is a 300 by 300 bed, I can print a 300 diameter wheel. So these are some 300 diameter wheels, and these have polycarbonate hubs, which I printed as well. And these are going to go on the big 100cc lumberjack. Would also work on here, but maybe just a touch large. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. The real benefit to this stuff is that you can play around with how much percentage infill you have and how many layers on the outside that you have to get a particular firmness. These are quite soft at that 6% infill plus 2 layers in the perimeter because I want them to have a bit of give like a bush wheel will. If you wanted something a bit harder like a scale wheel, you could probably go up to 4 layers so on the outside and maybe 20% infill and make them a lot harder tire. Do it in a smaller form factor, for example. Now, to make my wheels the shape that I want, I use a free online software called Onshape, which is an online CAD program. Free to sign up, free to use, just limited to some of the features that you would otherwise get with a paid version, but plenty enough for most modeling. So when I'm making that shape, I like to do a cross-section on a plane. You can see there's my cross-section, then I just use a revolve to get that shape. To make the wheel hubs, I just basically copy that sketch into a new document, and then I can use the existing sketched contours to draw myself up a wheel hub, which I can then make sure fits by matching them together here in assembly and before I start printing the parts. Before I did mention that you could adjust your infill percentage here and your perimeters, but the whole point of this VarioSure TPU is the fact that you can vary the shore hardness. So that is done by varying the temperature and the flow rate together, to adjust how hard that actually ends up coming out, so that shore hardness. So you can actually not just change the infill percentage and the perimeters values, but you can adjust the temperature and flow rate to get a harder shell or tire.